What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to us episode number 2 actually of our Realism Overhaul career mode here in KSP. So today we've got quite a bit of let's just say episode. Yeah, a lot of development is gonna be had in this episode, definitely. As you can see on the lowest pad, probably from the name as well, you could probably guess where this is going, and from the Delta V stats as well. We've got the Orbital 2 rocket, which is just called the Orbital 2 for now. If it completes what it is supposed to do, we'll give it a name. Yeah, I can't spoil anything, unfortunately. So yeah. Anyway, you're probably wondering why we're calling it the Orbital 2, as we have got liftoff and tower has been cleared, I guess. Why it's called the Orbital 2. The reason why I called it the Orbital 2 was, as most of you probably know, in Realism Overhaul you have with the construction timer, I guess, the construction time, whatever, I can't even remember what it's called. You have the ability to simulate your launches before you actually launch them. And I had 2 ideas for a launcher, one that consisted of 4 Strapman boosters, which actually looked rather like the Soyuz or the R7, just with an upper stage. Excuse me. So that was called the Orbital 1 because that was the one that I came up to first, but that never really made it into orbit. But the Orbital 2, I actually, before the launch, I hadn't actually gotten it into orbit yet. So this is kind of a shot into the dark, because I just figured that if I make no mistake, there is a small possibility as we just drop the boosters there and continue on. We have got the Vanguard engine to push us up to these 3 kilometers per second actually, as we go on to the AJ10, the early one actually, not the middle one, because I haven't unlocked that yet. I really haven't had enough science yet. So anyway, we're powering ourselves into orbit. As you can see, I'm diverging from the velocity sector because my time to apoapsis is climbing. Well, it's not climbing, but it's too high basically, which probably will have to lead me to do a coast. Which also mean that I'm losing quite a lot of Delta V. So you can see we're kind of close on Delta V at this point, and we're dropping compared to what we need, because I'm diverging from the actual velocity vector, which is not too good, and you lose a lot of Delta V without actually thinking too much about it. So it looks like it's just gonna be the Orbital 2 that this is gonna be called for now. As we go on to our 3rd stage, I guess, if the Strapman booster is called, it's really only it is our 2nd stage. It could be the 4th, but we'll say it's the 3rd, which consists of the ROB engine. As we're going for a small coast, when that is out, we need about 1,000, probably more than a kilometer per second in Delta V. So we're looking like we're a bit short here, considering how high we are. So we're now gonna go to our baby Surgeon engines, and my freaking mobile went up as well as we go through the baby Surgeons here. We've only got one more trick up our sleeves now, and we launched that, and it's so close. And we make it into orbit just about with about probably a very small margin, considering that how bad our timing was. We could have got even a more stable orbit. You can see our apoapsis it is actually more than 700 kilometers high, and our apsis was 300 kilometers. So that was a very successful mission, and we actually named the probe. The probe got named Little Friend, because if you know just a little bit of Russian, or just a little bit of space history, Sputnik actually means little friend in Russian. So that was a very successful mission, and we got some science, so we could unlock bigger rockets. As you can see here, we have now got a single stage engine, which is which the 1st stage, or the booster, is considering of a RD-107 engine from the boosters of the R7, and the upper one is the engine that I can't remember what it's called, the one that powered Yuri Gagarin into orbit. The 2nd stage, I can't remember what it's called. Doesn't matter. As we've got liftoff and Clower has been cleared. Clower, okay, very nice talking. Tower has been cleared. This is the EOSRM mission, the 1st attempt. That's why it has a 1 in the end. It means Earth Orbit Sample Return Mission, number 1. Very advanced name, but that's just how it is with great speaking from there. That's just how it is with space and really just rocketry and it's all. It always has to have really difficult name. You could take an example. For example, the one NASA recently launched, the GOSA. That's not really a very pretty name. And also, you can also look at like the different planets out there. They're called like HD1057DJ or something like that. That's probably actually a planet that I just named right there. It's just too hectic and nobody can keep up with that. Only if you're a scientist, which obviously I'm not. Anyway, this second stage is from the science team, has been approved to be flight safety and should be able to get us into orbit as we go into the second stage here. I have to use the Separatons this time because I don't want to light the inside of the shroud, which would obviously ruin the rocket, which you probably saw on our Orbital 2 rocket. You saw that I kind of made it the Russian style, where you lit up the engine before you actually separated it, and that's why I left it open. So that's why it looked like that. And yeah, we're on to the second stage now. I haven't launched this before. I actually haven't simulated it. I don't think. I think I just went with it. But yeah, we're getting quite along in the science tech tree, and you can see as well. That means now we have got a probably something that's capable of taking us to orbit and deorbiting ourselves again and landing again, which is quite kind of a big task, I guess. As you can see, the little probe we have there in front, it has a heat shield as we've now skipped onto the other side of the planet. We've got a little Separatron there to hopefully deorbit us, which for some reason is placed off center. So there it goes. And our periapsis is about 7 kilometers. So if we get the heat shield pointing the right way, this would be a very, very tough re-entry. It will probably pull a lot of G's. But the first thing happened here, the heat shield protector, which connects to the engine, it just doesn't separate. So we are stuck now, kind of with the situation that John Glenn had when he re-entered. Ripped him as well. When he re-entered with the heat shield that was apparently broken, which was just a sensor malfunction. And we can see we're starting to heat up here, and our antenna and everything here, and we lose the antenna, and that for some reason makes the parachute go head first, which is obviously probably the most important and vital opponent on this actual rocket. So everything separate. I mean, if we get these two down on its own, that would actually be a mission success, but we're still very, very far from actually going to the atmosphere, and at this time we're just hoping, crossing our fingers, everything, but it's starting to burn up, which leads to us losing the mission. So that was just fun straight out the window, and that was a really unfortunate mission, which means that we have got to do it again. This time I did put the orbital motors to actually deorbit me, but I'm not going to use them. This time I'm just going to get my periapsis to about the 70 kilometers you need to re-enter without actually getting into orbit. Well, I get into orbit, but it's not without the atmosphere, or outside of the atmosphere, as we've always got lift off here of the EOSRM2. What this basically means is that we'll have a launch of that would be quite a lot more simple. That doesn't need me to be accurate on my .v stats when I need to re-enter. Which would make it a heck of a lot more easy. This time we just need to be able to decouple that Separaton that was on the heat shield. That basically meant the shroud around the heat shield. If that doesn't decouple, we'll probably have the same problem again, with making it kind of the center of Mao was probably centered wrong, and that's why we kept on tumbling and not going heat shield first. So we don't want to do that again. So as I've said, this time we have got deorbit motors on, which was probably a mistake. I just put it to if I by mistake overshot, and I had to do something to deorbit myself, as we now go on to the second stage here, powering us into orbit. This rocket is it is looking good so far. I can't really remember what I called it. I think I called it the SSL, the small satellite. Yeah, I remember. I called it the SSL because that means small satellite launcher. I should probably actually call it the small, or the SASL, which would mean small artificial satellite launcher, because obviously we're quite early in the space program, so satellite really just means something that orbits around the planet. It still does in real life as well, but like at this moment you're probably more using artificial satellite, in the time when we're actually only in like 1951 at this time. So and we've already got satellites into orbit. And if you know something about space, some really simple things, like Sputnik was launched in 1957. So we're about 6 years ahead, and absolutely powering through, which is, I guess, that's accepted very much. It's because I didn't really want to do the planes, because I can't do planes whatsoever in KSP. If you've ever watched any of my other videos, I can't do them whatsoever. As now we've powered itself into orbit, it seems like we're going to be going on quite a steep trajectory. Just as long as the heat shield, it goes head first, or heat shield first, I'm sorry. If that doesn't happen, as we're also now in a blackout, I'm sorry. So, which means we won't have connection. But as you can see, I worked quite a lot on the center of mass on this one, which means that we will have our heat shield ahead, pointing ahead, which is very, very nice. But unfortunately, as you can see, we're tumbling quite a bit, which means the antenna is sometimes peeking out of the actual protected area, which is kind of sad. And hopefully it stables out. As you can see, it's stabling out quite a bit, and the heat shield is starting to heat up quite a bit. Unfortunately, this re-entry is going to be in the dark, so I can't really speak to, or you can't really see too much, I'm sorry. Which will, I'll hopefully just have to speak you through it. I'm trying to do my best, because obviously, remember, I can see just as much as you, but obviously I know what is going to happen. This heat shield, I didn't actually think about too much what it could actually withstand, as we lose the antenna there, which is probably a bad sign. But the heat shield seems to hold on nicely, and we're already exceeding like 5 Gs. We just surpassed 6 Gs, actually 7 Gs. About 7.2 Gs we probably peaked at there, so that was kind of a heavy re-entry. You don't want to put a cable in that. So the parachute is destined to open at about 10 kilometers. If you're sitting in a dark room, you can probably see you can probably see something as the parachute deploys there. And I decided to skip ahead of that, because you probably couldn't see too much. Neither could I, really. It just took a long time to get down, but we recovered it. We landed in some water just off the coast of Australia, so that was a very successful mission, as we have now got a launch of our EOS-1, as we have liftoff there, and I said Clower again, and tower has been cleared. Yeah, this is our EOS-1, which has kind of a weird fairing, but it just didn't want to fix that for some reason. But the EOS-1, is kind of an easy name to solve. It's just Earth Orbital Satellite. Earth Orbit Satellite 1, which is just going to be going up there to try and collect some science for me, so I can get some science to do something. Last time I played the game with Realism Overhaul, which is kind of a long time ago actually, I'm quite sure it had like biomes which said Australia, Africa, the coast of Africa, the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, but apparently it doesn't seem to do that anymore. Now it's just like in the standard KSP, where it just said grasslands and over the Earth's water, and in space above Earth. So that's kind of annoying, as we had then I guess Miko there managing to cut off, which leads us onto the second stage. This is still the SSL we are using to launch, or the SSL-1, I guess, which we are using to launch our satellites at this minute, and it is probably going to be a workhorse for quite a bit of time until we get the ability to actually launch Kerbals as well, or maybe when we get some contracts to go to the moon, which I have available, but I far from have technology. I have to get some money so that I can get maneuver nodes as well, because that would make it a lot more easy for me to get into orbit. So we'd probably just work for some money and some science at this time. Probably going to be the next episode. Maybe we'll get to the moon in the next episode if we're kind of lucky. I'm also exploring quite a lot, because it's been quite a long time since I last did this, so I really had forgotten how much respect it actually takes to do RSS and Realism Overhaul. It is really, really hard actually, as we make it into orbit there. This time I wanted to try and go for a really high orbit. I didn't know what counted as high above Kerbin, so I just sort of went with it, and hope for the best, as we're now going to go on to 3 baby surgeon there, which burns out in about, I think it's 12 seconds they burn in, I can't remember. But as you can see as you can see there, we have got a simple pod, which is going to be going at a periapsis of 28 million 28 million meters, which is quite a lot. It's about, no, I won't guess now, and I'm just going to guess wrong, so I'm not going to open my mouth about that. Anyway, we have now got the launch of our EOS 2P, and I just put the P on then. That's because it's going in a polar orbit, so that I would kind of have it more organized when I go into the tracking station, so I can see which are in polar orbits and which are not. If I want to do something with the satellites. Obviously, I don't really have thrusters on these yet. These satellites yet, so I won't really have too much control of them, and neither do I have solar pounds. So yeah, what am I, why would even I don't know. It just makes it easier to remember where everything is. And it looked a bit more professional as well. That's probably why I put it there. We're going in a polar orbit, as I said. We're just now trying to get it on the right course to put us into the polar orbit. We want to go above the poles, so that we can basically gather some more science and get some better technology, which is really what I'm trying to work towards now, and getting some money as well. As we go, we have Miko and now onto the second stage, and we drop those pheromones, always looking really nicely when you drop him. As we're powering through, this time we have got 3 baby surgeons as well, because we want to go for a high orbit as well this time, because this time I was actually kind of unsure whether or not I had enough delta V, because I knew that it requires quite a lot of delta V if you want to go into a polar orbit, than compared to when you just want to go into a equatorial orbit. I think that's what it's called. I can't remember. Equatorial orbit. Yeah, around the equator, equatorial orbit, of course. Because you don't have the speed advantage or velocity advantage of the rotation of the Earth, so you have to fight that at the start, which loses you quite a lot of delta V. But I didn't actually consider how much delta V this vehicle actually has, because you only actually need about 9,000 meters per second of delta V to get into orbit around Earth, and this has about, I think, 1100 with the baby surgeons, so we've got about 2,000 meter or kilometers per second too much. So we get into a kind of a high orbit, but that's completely fine because it will still count as the poles. As we are now going above the North Pole, so we've got connection and everything. And it seems like a lot of these science, I only think about 2 of the science equipment I had on board worked. Otherwise, the other 2, the press bar or meter, obviously, said just, I don't know what just happened there. But anyway, there was sound in that clip which it wasn't meant to have. But as I was saying, the press bar meter obviously just only records above the space, above space, because you can't really do pressure scans at from space on what the pressure is on the poles. That wouldn't really make any sense. Anyway, this time I'm trying to do something for the first time with our EOS 3. This is the 3rd Earth orbit satellite. This time I tried to do a contract which said that I would have to go in a 40-degree orbit. But as you can see, we are doing the 40 degrees very nicely, but what I forgot was that I was on the different side of the planet, which meant that it was not 40 degrees I was meant to go on. So this time I'm actually going the wrong direction. I need to be going further to the south. So that is a big disappointment, and I had no idea about this until I got into orbit, actually, which you'll see in a minute. Which is super annoying. This rocket also has a very advanced satellite compared to the Earth. Quite a lot more heavy satellite as well, which has got RCS as well, which is a new technology of our space program, of course. And it can do course corrections, because now we've already got the 1 kilonewton engine, which will be very, very, very practical and will help us quite a lot, especially for course corrections and just making your orbit a bit more precise. So yeah, at this moment we're diverging from the velocity sector as well, because this time we're actually on a bit of a too shallow trajectory, which you don't want to be. You want to be on a more, you want to be in a perfect orbit, but I'm just never capable of doing that. So that's just always how it is. Anyway, we're on to the second stage here, obviously going to put us into orbit. we're missing about 1,000 or 1,000 meters per second at this rate, which we're obviously easily gonna get from this stage on its own. Anyway, the satellite would have done it as well. It has about 800. It has 804 meters per second, as you can see in the top left corner, and it has a burning time of about 8 minutes and 24 seconds. So we've now got SECO and we are into orbit. So when you see I go into map display here in a minute, I figured it out without actually realizing it. I had no idea that was on the wrong orbit at this moment. As you can see here, the satellite just showing off a bit, and as you can see, I was supposed to go on the blue orbit there, and I was going on the complete different orbit, which is kind of sad. So I'm just gonna leave you here with the satellite going on into infinity. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you for the next episode of this, and yeah, I'm really loving the series. Hopefully so are you, and yeah, see you later.